Good evening and welcome. Tonight I will be reading to you this history magazine article about Prohibition. Now, if you don't know, because this doesn't really get into the history of Prohibition, Prohibition was a time in American history, U.S. history, where alcohol was illegal from 1920 to, I believe, 1930, a whole decade. Alcohol was illegal. Or it was like 1919 to 1929. It was around there. I remember it was about 10 years. Alcohol was made illegal, mainly after many movements that were led mostly by mothers who had lost children to drunk drivers, and like wives who were married to alcoholics, broken families, things like that. Formed different groups. They all lobbied to Washington and managed to make alcohol illegal. That created a lot of problems. Let's say when you make something illegal that was previously illegal, doesn't matter what it is, it creates a lot of problems. And this was one of them, this instance. It says during Prohibition, the U.S. government added toxins to industrial alcohol, knowing it could kill. The result, a chemical war that targeted the poor and reshaped public trust. Interesting article, but I did not pick this article to read to you all. My channel members did. This article was chosen by Luna, Alex, Bocce, Craig, Victoria, Laura W., and M. Rosalie. Thank you all so much for picking this article. It's not one I thought that people would pick, so I was pleasantly surprised when so many channel members picked it. And if you watching this would like to pick a history magazine article, you can click the join button right down there to become a channel member, or you can click the very first link in the description box. My channel memberships are only 99 cents a month. The cheapest I can possibly set it to. Believe me, if I can make it like 50 cents, I totally would. I would make it as affordable as possible so that everyone can get a chance to get some exclusive content. A lot of people have been making requests lately for topics. Right now, you can only make requests if you are a channel member, and then you get a channel member exclusive video based on that topic. You get your name in every video. You get to watch videos before the general public. You get behind the scenes things. You get all kinds of goodies, including picking history magazines. So if you would like to join, I would love to have you. I am very close to 200 channel members, and I am anxious to see who is going to be number 200. Maybe it's you watching this. Guess we'll find out. But let's learn more about this interesting era of American history and what the government did to try to keep people from drinking alcohol. Let's see. When jazz musician Bix Beiderbecke poured himself a drink in Cleveland, Ohio in 1928, he didn't know his luck had just run as dry as the nation's taps. He collapsed while performing, and in the coming years his health rapidly declined. Although he was a known alcoholic, Beiderbecke's death from pneumonia at age 28 was still shocking. Some speculate it wasn't just an infection that killed one of the greatest cornetists of the 20s. He'd been poisoned. The likely culprit, a government policy that made drinking alcohol not just illegal, but lethal. During Prohibition, the so-called noble experiment, not all alcohol was banned, just that which was drinkable, non-medicinal, and non-religious. To prevent bootleggers from using industrial alcohol, the United States government denatured it by adding toxic chemicals like methanol and benzene to render it undrinkable, and give manufacturers tax exemptions if enough toxic additives were included. The public knew. A New York Times headline at the time read, "Government to double alcohol poison content." By the end of Prohibition in 1933, I was way off, 1933, more than 10,000 Americans had died from imbibing tainted booze. The drink that poisoned a generation. Bootleggers, eager to meet demand for liquor, stole, redistilled, and diluted industrial alcohol to counteract the toxic additives. Thousands of people died in what researchers have called the chemists' war on prohibition. It was more out of ignorance than actually trying to kill people who drink, said Zach Jensen, a content editor at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. I blame the bootleggers. They deliberately passed off poisonous alcohol as legitimate, but I don't think the government is completely inculpable. That culpability didn't go unnoticed. For instance, Charles Norris, New York City's first chief medical examiner, was a leading voice against alcohol's denaturation, calling it our noble experiment in extermination. Generally, politicians don't like to kill people that elect them, said Peter Liebold, a Smithsonian curator emeritus. Even criminal organizations don't like killing their consumers because they're in the business of selling stuff. But on Christmas Eve of 1926, 60 people wound up in New York's Bellevue Hospital from drinking tainted liquor. 8 didn't live past Christmas, and in the following days, the death toll climbed to 23, with dozens more blinded. Horrified, Norris swiftly gathered the press. The government knows it is not stopping drinking by putting poison in alcohol, yet it continues its poisoning process, heedless of the fact that people determined to drink are daily absorbing that poison, he told reporters. Knowing this to be true, the United States government must be charged with the moral responsibility for the deaths that poisoned liquor causes, although it cannot be held legally responsible. A policy with unequal costs. But not everyone saw the government as the villain. Wayne Wheeler, counsel and key leader of the Anti-Saloon League, argued that blame didn't lie with the law, but with drinkers themselves. The person who drinks this industrial alcohol is a deliberate S-word, Wheeler said in a 1926 statement. The very fact that men will gamble with their lives to get a drink of liquor shows how deeply this habit was fixed. To root out a bad habit like that costs many lives and long years of effort. That statement outraged some lawmakers. New Jersey Senator Edward Irving Edwards called it legalized M-word and declared the government an accessory to the crime. I do have to censor myself because of YouTube. There's a lot of death in this article, and I don't want YouTube to flag this video or demonetize this video, so I have to be careful with some words, so I apologize. However, according to Liebold, while the government denatured alcohol to prevent consumption, it was criminals who made it available, often in dangerously impure conditions. So, was it red rum? Ooh, that's kind of a good word to use for this article. Was it? Maybe not, but the government's attitude was that if you're willing to drink, you'll suffer the consequences, which weren't equally felt. Wealthier Americans could obtain government-approved medical whiskey or sip cocktails overseas on booze cruises. Working-class communities and people of color lacked such options and were often the ones drinking what was available and dying from it. One popular liquor alternative was Jake, slang for the patent medicine Jamaica ginger. Lots of pictures in this. Jamaica ginger, which contained up to 95%, I thought I read that wrong, 95% alcohol. But the government mandated that non-prescription bottles of it contain a high content of bitter ginger oleoresin to deter people from drinking it. To avoid detection and make the drink more palatable, manufacturers instead added triorthocresol phosphate, TOCP, an industrial plasticizer that mimicked the look of the ginger oleoresin. This slow-acting neurotoxin attacked the nervous system, causing paralysis or a distinctive limp that became known as Jake leg. About 35,000 Americans joined the United Victims of Ginger Paralysis Association. Holy moly. And though the exact number is unknown, estimates range from 50,000 to 100,000 affected. Bluesman Ishman Bracey memorialized the condition in his song Jake Liquor Blues, singing, "It's the doggonest disease ever heard of since I've been born. You get numb in front of your body. You can't carry any lovin' on." The government as a moral authority. While framed as a moral crusade, Prohibition was also political. 7 years before its enactment, the 16th Amendment created a federal income tax, enabling the loss of government revenue from drinking alcohol. Denaturing industrial alcohol made it unfit for consumption and therefore untaxable. After a period of time, they knew they were killing people, and they didn't stop, said Deborah Bloom, a Pulitzer Prize-winning science journalist, author, and expert on the history of poison in America. I don't think they were intentionally trying to kill people, but they were. So I think that's the acceptance of collateral damage, like in any war. Harvard history professor Lisa McGurr argues in her book, The War on Alcohol, that this was really the rise of the penal state. It saw the growth of wiretapping, a surge in incarceration, and increased federal policing, practices that would later expand during the war on drugs and beyond. It's the people who pay when governments give themselves the mantle of moral authority and high ground that justifies. Whatever I do is justified because I'm doing it for your good, Bloom says, and I decide what your good is. I think that's the last page. Fascinating, right? I have never heard of that. I'd never thought of, like, when I'm thinking about prohibition, about like alcohol that you use for like rubbing alcohol, or alcohol that you put on wounds to disinfect it, you know, to stop people from drinking that. I wonder if mouthwash had alcohol in it back then. I know most of it doesn't today because it like burns, but anyway, let's look at this picture here. There's lots of great pictures in this article. It says, bottoms up, this illegal bar and tens of thousands of others around the country operated at the height of Prohibition. Bootlegging helped establish and fund organized crime, notably that of gangsters like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano. If you don't know, bootleggers were people, well, are people, they're still around. They make like moonshine. Bootleggers are people who make alcohol at home, usually like in their backyard or in a shed or something. He's having a great time. They're having a nice time. He's looking like, maybe not take my photo. But yeah, it's a party at the bar. Looks like they're all drinking beers at the bar. And the illegal bar here. Oh, look at this image here. This is so interesting because you can see the trap door here. And all of the barrels and kegs, big keg bottles that they've taken out of it. And look how smug he is. He's like, I found this. And if you look, it's labeled grape juice, Brooks grape juice. Well, if it's wine, I suppose it is grape juice, isn't it? That's funny. But let's see what the caption says. It says, on April 25th, 1923, Prohibition officers recovered beer and wine from Carl Hamill's restaurant on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. Today, the Department of Justice headquarters is located on this site. How interesting. If you don't know, Pennsylvania Avenue is a very important street in D.C. It's the street that the White House is on. So this was probably just blocks from the White House where this illegal alcohol was being stored. That's pretty wild, isn't it? My goodness. That's amazing. Here looks like they're dumping out all of this booze from these barrels. It says Prohibition officers or dry agents would enforce the law not only by confiscating bootleg liquor, but also by pouring it into sewers so it couldn't re-enter the black market. Many photos from this era captured agents disposing of the illegal alcohol in full view of the public. I guess it looks like they're just on a street corner and just dumping it into the street so it would flow into the sewers. Interesting. I wonder how that messed up the sewer system there. I bet you Prohibition officers would be like, yeah, we're dumping out all these barrels except for the barrel or two that we hid so that we can imbibe in it, right? I wonder. Now, this is a great photo, isn't it? It looks so jubilant and so happy and exciting. This, when I think of the 1920s, I think of stuff like this, the nightclub and the singing and the fashion, all of this. So this says, throughout Prohibition, many speakeasies operated in secret or with cooperation from corrupted officials. Former actress Mary Texas Guinan became known as Queen of the Nightclubs. Although she was arrested several times, it was never proven that she owned the establishments. Thus, she was never convicted. She is a queen, isn't she? Surrounded by all these men. This guy's drinking right here. And he's singing his heart out with her. My goodness. He's hitting a note there while playing on the piano. All right, and what's happening over here? He is busting up a barrel here with a pickaxe by the looks of it. And look at all the barrels on this truck that they're unloading. They're about to smash up everywhere. It says cracking down. Philadelphia's Director of Public Safety, Smedley Darlington Butler. Now that's a name. Smedley Darlington Butler was tasked with enforcing prohibition in one of the wettest cities in the country, but struggled due to widespread police corruption. Butler shone in 1924 destroying bootleg beer that would flow into the Schuylkill River. I don't think that's very good for the life in the river. I wonder if all the fish got sick. Or drunk, maybe. I wonder. Now look at this chemist here. All the bottles that he has. And he's taking a long sip, I suppose. I'm not quite sure. Let's see what the caption says. It says, Chemist G.F. Bayer of the Internal Revenue Bureau tests bootleg whiskey in 1920. Tasting it. It's a little dangerous, isn't it? Government chemists used various methods to determine each brand's exact composition and identify toxic ingredients. Maybe he's just swishing it around and spitting out. I don't know. Or maybe he got to drink it. He got to legally drink out of the little test tubes and little beakers and stuff. I wonder. Interesting job there, testing the alcohol. And then we have this opening picture that you saw at the beginning. Let's see what the caption says. A man displays bottles of tainted alcohol linked to a 1923 Prohibition case in Chicago. These concoctions killed 215 people in a single year. I think we got that from the sign here. These decoctions killed 250 Chicagoans during 1923. Looks like all kinds of stuff. Not very clearly labeled, is it? Maybe that's on purpose. Little worrisome though. Because, like, how do you know what you're drinking, right? Because you could say, like, this is vodka because it's clear, but what if it's actually like rubbing alcohol or something? So, kind of like today, if you get a pill from someone, they say it's something, and you have no idea what it is. Nowadays, it could be anything, right? That's a little worse. No wonder so many people lost their lives so unnecessarily, too. So sad. But anyway, that is it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to the channel members that requested this article. I definitely learned some things about Prohibition that I didn't know before, including getting the dates right. My goodness. I hope you learned something too. And if you want to choose future History Magazine articles, don't forget that you can click the join button right down there and become a part of my channel members. I'd love to have you. I do hope, though, that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night.